Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to the session entitled Unboxing Enterprise Portal Capabilities, Making the Move from Custom Web Applications to Esri Web App Builder. I am not Corey or Sarah. My name is Matthew, and I'll be moderating the session today. Due to the ice storm, Corey and Sarah were able to work very diligently and provide me with a recorded session yesterday, just in case they were unable to attend today and had any connection issues due to the storm. I'll be playing that video in just a moment. Corey is planning to be available in the chat, so if you have questions, go ahead and click that green chat icon next to the video, join the chat. Feel free to ask those as the video plays through or at the end, and Corey will make sure to address those. We do appreciate them making that available and also being able to monitor the chat. This video, as well as all of our other videos, will be available via the NCGIS conference YouTube channel at the conclusion of the conference. So be sure to check that out in case there's some sessions you didn't get to, or maybe some useful information that you may have missed that you want to go back and replay at a later date. During the conference, you can also go back to any session and replay those videos and get more information. If you'd like to do so, you can do that straight from the conference site. So without delaying any further, I'm going to go ahead and switch over and start the video. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Corey will be happy to answer those as the video goes along. I'll be back at the conclusion of the video to wrap us up and provide some housekeeping items. Again, thank you for tuning in, and the video will begin in just a moment.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending our presentation. Today we'll be talking about unboxing enterprise portal capabilities, making the move from custom web applications to Esri Web App Builder. My name is Corey Cadell, and I'm a GIS specialist with the City of Durham, and I was the primary developer of this new web application we'll be discussing today.
And my name is Sarah Schwartzer. I'm a GIS analyst with the city, and I was asked to help out with some of the pop-ups.
So just to give you a little bit of background about who we are at the City of Durham, we're an Esri shop. We maintain all of our data using ArcMap. Historically, we've also published our map services from ArcMap. This fiscal year, we decided to transition to ArcGIS Pro for our publishing responsibilities. The main reason for doing this is because it's said that ArcGIS Pro is more compatible with ArcGIS Enterprise Portal. ArcGIS Enterprise Portal is where we create our web maps and web applications for our users. When we publish our map services, they are published to the ArcGIS server. And basically what this means is our map services are held in that server. So currently our public works staff utilize a custom web map that we've developed for them. It was developed in ArcGIS API for JavaScript, and it's one big map that houses all of our data. The benefit to this is you have full customization and design and functionality of your web map. The major limitation that we face is that only a small number of our staff have the knowledge necessary to maintain it. So this fiscal year, we decided to move to an out-of-the-box approach. And since we're an Esri shop, we decided to go with Web App Builder. Web App Builder is clean, user-friendly, and seems to be more sustainable in the sense that more staff can work on updates and progression of this map. Our goal was to replicate as much functionality as possible that currently exists in the custom web map using Web App Builder. So one of the questions we asked ourselves when developing this web application was, how are we going to handle our imagery? Or how would you handle your imagery in your new application? So currently, the imagery that we use is provided by a third party called Nearmap. They fly our county a few times a year, providing the most up-to-date imagery for us to use. Majority of our staff use this imagery on a daily basis for a variety of reasons. It could be identifying where storm drains are, assessing sewer discharge, or even for us, mapping impervious area. As you can see in the screenshots, in our custom web application, we have this imagery set up as a dropdown. So it gives users the ability to change the date in which the imagery was collected, and they can go all the way back to, I believe, 2016 for this particular imagery. This is a huge component to their daily work, so we've decided that this is one of the main components and functionality that we needed to replicate in the new custom web application. So after doing some research, we discovered the time slider widget, which is a widget within Web App Builder that Esri provides. And what this does is basically gives you the same functionality that we set up in the custom web map, but in a slightly different way. So instead of having a drop down, the time slider actually allows you to slide through the imagery rather than just having the drop down and you select the imagery. And we thought this was a really cool component and something that would be a cool change, but still giving the same functionality to users. So when we decided to implement this, or tried to implement this into the web application, we discovered that we were getting a error saying that there was no time-aware layers that were visible. Now, what this error means is the time settings on the particular map service you're trying to use it on, in our case, Nearmap, were not enabled. So, like I mentioned, Nearmap is a third-party map service that we use, so we didn't have any editing privileges to this map service, which means we can't turn the time settings on. So, unfortunately, we are unable to use the time slider widget at this time. So how can you resolve this issue? Now, just to give you a little bit of background for those of you that don't have never seen Web App Builder or used Web App Builder, within Portal, to utilize Web App Builder, you would need to have a web map. You would create a web map, and then that application will be built using Web App Builder connected to that web map. So looking at the web map, in our table of contents, as you can see, we have a bunch of layers in there. Now, how we resolved the issue of not having the time settings enabled was we duplicated the map service multiple times within the web map, and then when you click the ellipses on that one particular map service, one copy of it, you can set an image filter on it. Now, basically what this image filter does is it is a definition query like you would see in ArcMap that basically tells that map service to show a specific date or display a specific date in which the imagery was collected. And we did this for, I believe we have a total of 16 of them now. So in the application, when you open the Nearmap layer list, you can see that we have all the dates there, and each one has that image filter on it. So if I wanted to look at June 2020 imagery, I would just check on that particular layer, and that imagery would be displayed. Now, another question that we asked ourselves was, how are we going to replicate the layer list or the layers organization within the new web application? Now, currently in the custom map, we have over 100 layers contained within the web map, and we organize those layers thematically. So as you can see in the screenshot, and this is from the custom web map, if you click the layers button, you'll get a list of the generic layers that majority of staff would use. That means the utilities such as water, sewer, storm, roads, parcels, etc. All those generic layers that would be used. And then within that list, we have a button called More Layers. Now, this is a layer collection that a menu that pops up that allows you to select more specific layers. And these are categorized by group. So if I was in development review, and I wanted my layers, I would just click that that category, and only my layers would come up. Now we wanted to replicate the organization that exists in the custom map into the new application. To do this, we utilize the layer list widget, which is another tool or another widget that's provided in Web App Builder by Esri. One thing to note is when you're creating a web application using Web App Builder, you will most likely use at least one layer list widget to display the layers that are contained within your web map. However, layer lists also give you the ability to have some customization with your design and functionality of that application, which we'll get into next. So going back to the web map, we have all of our map services that are contained within that web map in the table of contents. So you can see water, sewer, storm, and then the more specific layers as well. Now, in the menu for Web App Builder, for the layer list specifically, they interact with those map services that are contained within the map. Now, in this menu, this is the header controller. So this is basically where you can set up how the application looks, and like with all the tabs and everything as you see fit. And what we ended up doing is we pulled the utilities out into their own layer list. As you can see, we have the water, sewer, and storm there. Now, when you're configuring layer lists, I'll be focusing on just water, but everything that I'm saying applies to all the layer lists that you add to your web application. Now, with water, as you can see in the bottom half of this screenshot, we have water checked on. Now, each layer list interacts with all the map services like I just mentioned. So if we wanted to, we can turn on sewer and storm in this layer list as well. But we want to isolate the utilities into their own layer list, so we just have water clicked. Now, when you go to the application, as you can see, only water is displayed. And when you hit that drop down, then all those layers will be there that are contained within that map service. Now, like I just mentioned, you can have multiple map services within a layer list. So instead of having just water, you can have water, sewer, and storm within one layer list. And this is an option we're considering. We're going to let our users test this out, see how they like this setup. And if they'd rather have all the utilities together, we can easily manipulate the layer list to do that, so it won't be a problem. Now, did you know that you can also combine layer lists? This was something really interesting and definitely benefited us in terms of our more specific layers. So to create a layer list from layer lists, what you would do is you would just take one layer list, drag it on top of another, and then it would create that combination. And you can add as many layer lists into the combination of layer lists as well as just in the application itself, as many as you'd like. And currently right now we have 21 layer lists. So once you create that layer list of all the different layer lists, sorry for the terminology, it's kind of hard to explain. Once you do that, in the application, it would be set up as a drop-down. And this is very similar to the custom web map in this case. So when you click the drop-down, you can see all of our specific layers and listed here. So if I was working for engineering services, all I would do is click engineering services, and then that layer list will pop up. and it will just contain those layers. This makes it very clean and very user-friendly, so not all the layers are clustered up and makes the user have to search for them super hard. And this then definitely benefits us rather than just having each map service listed in one layer list. Now I'm going to pass this on to Sarah so she can talk about pop-ups and Google links.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Corey. All right. So I'm Sarah Schwartzer, a GIS analyst with the Public Works GIS group with the City of Durham, and I was asked to help build some HTML pop-ups and Google links for the new web map. So one of the functions that we had to recreate in the new web map was a way to deal with empty link fields in our data. Many of our feature classes include links to important documents like construction drawings, as-built, and other items that are used by our entire department. In our current web map, we use JavaScript to control the display of links, substituting a text string saying null if the field doesn't contain a valid link. It saves users from clicking on an empty link and getting an error. So we definitely wanted to recreate that in the new map. To do this, 3 arcade expressions had to be created. If you haven't used arcade before, it is, quote, a simple portable scripting language for creating custom visualizations and labeling expressions, end quote. And it's used in ArcGIS Pro and Esri's online formats. The 3 basic functions we created are check for a valid path in the field by seeing if the value ends in .pdf, then store either a PDF path or the words no valid URL. If there is a valid link, set the link anchor in HTML to be displayed and the text to be hidden. If there is not a valid link, set the text to be displayed, no valid URL, and the link anchor to be hidden. If you're familiar with CSS and HTML, you can see that the expressions are changing the CSS display properties in the HTML to either be hidden or displayed. And if you're not familiar with it, you'll have to take our word for it like we did with the senior staff when they were explaining to us how to do this. So using the out-of-the-box pop-up customization, you can easily add field name and field value pairs, or you can substitute the value with custom expressions as shown in the last slide. But when you use that basic custom pop-up, you end up with some formatting that's less than ideal. So that wasn't going to cut it for us. We needed more consistent displays of attributes across all of the features we wanted to display. You can see on the left there's standard pop-up, and on the right what it looks like when you add the field and value pairs. You lose the neat table layout that they have. So creeping on their code, we unlock the secrets to their pop-ups. If you want to see this info in Firefox, you can right-click on any object on a web page and click Inspect Object. All of the pop-ups are built as tables with different properties on the rows and cells. So using that basic information, especially padding and font color, we were able to recreate their table format. The downside of fully customizing the pop-up is that you have to write every table cell value for that pop-up. You also can't specify any CSS styles at the top of your HTML, so you have to write it into every row and cell. The code for a single pop-up, when complete, looks like the block that's showing right now. But you can see just by looking at it that there's a pattern. It's some HTML and CSS, plus our field's display name, plus more HTML, plus our field's name in the data, plus more HTML. And to bring it back to the link expressions, you can see at the bottom what the full code looks like for a row with a link. So we had the basic formula, but we're presented with 2 problems. First, we had over 180 table rows to create across 14 different feature classes. Also, Esri says right there on their website that when you customize pop-ups in ArcGIS Pro, that they'll also be included in any web layers that you publish, but they aren't. From what we can tell, this is because our ArcGIS Pro version is ahead of our Portal version, and that's just going to continue to be an issue for us. So this means that anytime that we have to republish a service, we need to recreate each custom pop-up. So what does someone who's totally new to web development do to easily recreate a pattern? They use Excel. We've all been there. You know, you've used it. Excel is great at stringing together values from different cells, right? So we found a relatively easy way to plug in all the fields we needed into Excel, and then we could create the meat of the tables, and then manually add the HTML to begin and end each table. So to revisit the formula we saw earlier, we see that we need 5 different parts in 5 cells. The table had our fields info in 2 parts, and the HTML and CSS in 3 parts. And through the magic of concatenate, we could get the full code for each row of our pop-up. So we plugged that in and hit Control D, and we quickly knocked out creating a ton of rows. You can also see the link fields in this tiny little graphic highlighted in yellow. They needed a little bit of custom editing to line up the expression numbers, but that was pretty painless since we had the formula for those as well. So we went from the visually displeasing basic custom pop-up to a much more ordered custom one using some HTML. We threw all of the final code into a big reference document, and from there, we just copy and paste every time we have to republish the service. It's not ideal, but it's better than the alternative, and it works. So one last little piece is how we built our Google links. We did something similar to create a link that would open Google Maps to any parcel address. Our original map had a custom Google Street View tool that was pretty widely used, and we thought a simple Google Map search in the new map would allow someone to then choose the Street View once they open the link. So we also know that there is a third-party custom widget that would give us Street View, but we haven't had time to look at that yet. Creating these URLs follows the same basic principle as the pop-ups, but it's much simpler. Back in the expression builder in the online map, we made an arcade expression to return a link. We take a static piece of information, which is the base URL, and combine it with our specific data for each record, the parcel address. We then substitute the pluses for spaces so we can match Google's URL query pattern, add our city and state, and then we get an individual link for each parcel. That's the value that this expression is returning. And that's all we have about pop-ups and links. Back to you, Corey.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to wrap this up a little quickly. I know we're running out of time. So the question I want to answer is, Web App Builder worth it? And yes, I think it is. It gives you the ability to create a web application that is ready to use in a short amount of time, and gives you a good base product that allows you to put it into production while you do some further customization, creating complex tools such as our Google Street View widget. And in addition, it provides like our staff or your staff like the ability to gain more experience in developing web development, as well as just learning new skills. I know for me, this is my first time doing web development, so I definitely learned a lot. So I definitely think it's worth it, and you should give it a try. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. If you run out of time, you can also contact us at our emails here, and we'll get back to you with any answers.
Well, thank you very much, Corey and Sarah, for that presentation. That was great. You know, I love Web App Builder. It's a great way to get in there, and there's a lot of customization that you can do. It's a great way to do that, a great way to learn how to do that. I know it's a lot easier if you remember the Flex versions that Esri had put out in the past. This is a much easier entry point. So Corey is in the chat. If you have questions, please feel free to put those in there. I see all the accolades coming in. So yeah, great job, Corey and Sarah. If there are a couple of questions that are going there, I'll let Corey respond to you directly in the chat. Again, I appreciate him and Sarah putting this video together yesterday last minute, but it greatly helped, especially with the weather that's rolling through. As you put in your questions and Corey checks those out, I'll give you a couple of housekeeping items. 3:30, we're starting a break for 30 minutes. We'll come back at 4 o'clock for 2 more concurrent session rounds. So we'll have 8 more presentations to choose from the 4 to 5 o'clock hour. At 5 o'clock, we're going directly into our social and poster session. So please make plans to join that at 5 o'clock. We'll have just a few housekeeping items to get started at the beginning of the social session, and then we'll go into breakout rooms. We have 5 great rooms to choose from, so I encourage you to join and pick a room to go into. If you go into that session and the social and there's a breakout room that you'd like to have, just shoot it to the chat when we get in there, and we'll work with Liz to get that room created and get you in there. The posters are still available for you to check out and vote on, so please do that. I'll be sharing a link in the social session of where to go to do that. Please go vote for the posters. That voting closes this afternoon at 6:30. So I'll leave this session open for a few more minutes and allow you to ask any questions and Corey to check those out. Again, I appreciate you tuning in and joining, and thanks again to Corey and Sarah. Hope everybody has a great rest of the day, and we'll be seeing you very shortly.